fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No, no. So fuck off. I'm busy. Bye bye. Piss off. Not sorry. Don't cry.
I don't even think you really know what a bad day is. But you're gonna find out.
I have no fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No,
Let's
no.
turn this mother up. Greetings. Hello. Welcome. Salutations. Thank you for coming on by. You're listening to an all-new episode of No Fucks Left, which is my podcast, and I am Landyn Shaw. And I have had a fucking horrible week. And because I have a podcast, I'm going to share and tell you all about it. Because that's what I'm allowed to do. And I must do it because, oi, what a week. But first, we must get on to the business of the word of the day.
What's the word? The word of the day. What's the word? What will Landyn say?
And the word of the day is, it's a good one. It definitely kind of gives you an idea of how I've just been feeling. And that's disoriented. Disoriented, as in confused as to time or place, out of touch. Used in the sentence, Landyn has felt motherfucking disoriented the past week or more. So you know what to do. Every time you hear that word, you're going to yell, you're going to scream, you're going to curse, shout, whatever you want. Just be loud, proud, and celebrate this wonderful community that I'm so grateful to have, the No Fucks Left Pod community. So go crazy every time you hear our word of the day, which is disoriented.
Shitty day.
Hello, hello,
Glad you came my way. Brought all this pain and all of this shame. Washed my joy away.
So this has been the first week where I really felt like I felt defeated. I'm just going to be honest. I felt defeated. I felt disoriented. And it was on many levels. First, it started very superficially. I went and got a perm, and it was a disaster. And so many things went wrong with that. And that'll be another story for another time. But what you need to know about it is that when someone is trans or intersex, a large thing of what they're dealing with is gender dysphoria. And for me, I want to go through life being seen as how I know I am. I'm a female. I'm a woman. I want to be seen as that. I don't want anyone necessarily to, be trying to figure out who I am or what gender I am. If anyone looks at me and sees me, I want them to just think there's a 6 foot tall woman. Now, obviously, I can't control what they think or what runs through their mind or how they view me. So what we do, at least what I do, is I try to help them out as much as possible and give them as many context clues. And hair, at least for me, is one of those ways to do that. And even when I walk into the grocery store and I don't have any makeup on, I took confidence and comfort in having curly hair and a perm and knowing that it had a feminine look to it. So for me, it's about trying to present as many different things in a feminine way as possible. And so a disastrous perm for anyone else might just be, oh, well, that sucks. But for me, it really devastated me. And then that was followed by, I was putting together the garden and I fucking drilled a hole in my hand. I'm a klutz, notorious klutz, and yeah, that was not fun, and I'm still dealing with the repercussions of it, and it was just a stupid fucking thing to do, but yeah, it really threw a wrench in my week. But the one thing that has really just put me over the top has been the politics and news in our world, specifically dealing with arts organizations and the National Endowment for the Arts. So I just need to talk about that really fast. And I'm just going to say it like this. We would be so fractured and would be such a different country if we didn't have the arts. I think everyone knows that. And even if you're not necessarily a passionate artist, you know how important the arts are in the grand scheme of things. We're the storytellers, we're the historians. We capture these fragments of time and I mean, I'm so frazzled and so disoriented. There it is. The arts are important. We all know that. And when it comes to the arts, it's not a very lucrative business model. It never has been, at least beyond Broadway. And so a lot of these arts organizations are what we call nonprofits. And they're able to do what they do, all the good work that they do, through funding, through grants, through sponsors, corporate donors, etc. None of these organizations can live on just ticket revenue. There's no way. As a matter of fact, in most models, ticket revenue only accounts for about 30% of their overall annual budget. So without these grant dollars, they're not able to do what they do. And the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, kind of has a trickle-down business model in that they give to other grant holders. Like, for example, in Missouri, when I lived there and I ran a nonprofit in Missouri, we had the Regional Arts Commission and then we had the Missouri Arts Commission, both of which received funding in some way, shape, or form from the National Endowment for the Arts. Often it would mean that the NEA would give to like Missouri, the state of Missouri, and then the state of Missouri would say, okay, to all you other arts organizations or those of you that give grants, whatever the case may be, we'll give you X amount of dollars from our federal amount. And that's going to fluctuate. And, you know, having cuts to the NEA and having cuts in funding for the arts is not new. This has happened many times before. It happened prior to COVID. In 2008, when the housing market collapsed, my wife and I were running a nonprofit and we lost all of our corporate donors and grant dollars and could not move forward with our season. There was just no way. We were still very young. It would have only been our third season. So the news this week that the NEA has cut all of their funding, and not just their funding like for the future, but the fact that there were artists and organizations who were counting on these dollars for the current budget year or the budget year, you know, that starts maybe this summer, whenever their season is. But the grant dollars for what they were told they were going to get and now not getting, that just hit an all-time low. And it's maybe because, again, I'm in the arts and I know what that's like to count on that money and to not get it, and how many lives are disrupted. When my wife and I had our season, we had already been well into planning, obviously. We had been cast already. We had hired people. I mean, we lost our funding at a very, very late stage. And those were some of the most difficult phone calls I've ever had to make. And I never want to make those again. It just really sucked on so many levels because you're disrupting so much. I mean, the trickle down is just ridiculous. And so that was a devastating story. That coupled with then this whole talk now about the cast members that are in Les Mis that want to not protest, but don't want to be a part of the performance where Trump, as chairman of the Kennedy Center or whatever, is having a fundraising night where it's going to coincide with a performance of the tour of Les Mis. And there are several cast members who are like, wait a minute, if this were just any other night, regular audience and he was attending, that'd be one thing. But this is a fundraiser. He's using our product and our show and my work as an artist to make money for, and I don't even know what the cause is for whatever the case may be, but these people have a right to take a stand. They're in a union. And the response, including someone who works for the Kennedy Center, who has gone on record as saying that perhaps those artists who want to sit out this performance should be listed so that other producers can know who they are. Like, do you not know what that sounds like and looks like? It looks like McCarthyism and, the blacklist. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? That's what we're coming to? This week has just been poof, 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 poof. It's hit me on so many levels. On any other week, I could take probably the news about the arts and just take it in and deal with it and move on. But I already had, like I said, the fucking gender dysphoria with the perm, and I put a drill through my hand. And then I'm seeing my industry and my livelihood being decimated even more. And then, on top of all that, we have, in the world of being trans, intersex, non-binary, we have those brave members of our military who identify as trans, non-binary, intersex are literally being removed from their posts, from the military, which again doesn't just disrupt the soldier, the person. It disrupts their family. It's going to disrupt their entire life, and not just for the next year or 2 years, for the rest of their life. Because we're talking about all of their benefits. They're being stripped from all of that. And this is not getting enough attention. This news was just another headline in the avalanche of headlines and bullshit that comes every day. But this one hits home, and it obviously hits home on many different levels for myself. But even when I saw this first being brought up in the news and by the Trump administration, that they were targeting the military members, my heart really just broke. I was so devastated, and I felt so hopeless. And you hear these stories, like, for the last several months while this was being worked out in court, all of these military members have just basically been in limbo, not knowing what their next assignment is, or not knowing what their life is going to look like, only to then have the Supreme Court fuck them over so badly. And again, that decision to just kind of be rolled out just like all the other news was absolutely devastating. No follow-up. I haven't seen the mainstream media talk to these members that are experiencing this and hearing their stories. I mean, the disruption to not only our military and each division of our armed services, but these individual families and the units and the camaraderie and the trust. I have to believe that these fellow soldiers don't view the person next to them when they're on the front lines as being anything other than their colleague and the person they hope has their back. And you're just creating so many holes and so much strife for these people who have made the ultimate sacrifice. They have said, I will give my life for my country. I will die for my country. And they're putting their families through this. And let's be honest, marginalized, disenfranchised people who have been in the military have always felt like, oh shit, I'm, what am I getting into? But I feel like, at least to those that I've talked to, the general sense is that, at least in this country, America, I still have more rights than I would in many other places. And so I feel that's worth fighting for. And I feel like if I fight for my country and I preserve our democracy and I preserve everything that makes us who we are, those rights will increase. And by my even being here, I'm giving visibility, and I'm being seen, and I'm working towards a cause. And so when you just remove us from the picture, when you remove us from the military, when you remove us from books, when you remove us from theater and stories, the impact of that on a humane level, I can't even describe. I'm so exhausted. I'm so disoriented, and it's getting so hard to try to scream from the rooftops why you should be able to exist, or why you should be able to just have some monicum of a life. Like, at this point, I don't even need rights necessarily. Just leave me alone. Leave us all alone. And leave the arts alone, and allow, I don't get, but I understand what you guys want the country to be. I understand that, sadly, a little bit more than I did even a week ago. And I will close with that in a sec, based on this great show that I saw, which really just added all the fuel to the fire for me, and cemented everything for me. And I'll share that with you in a second. But so here's where I'm at. I understand that you guys want what you want. But when you have tricked yourselves into believing that how you feel is what the majority feels, and people aren't yelling loud enough or making enough noise, the damage is still going to get done. There are American citizens who are currently right now in some fucking prison in like El Salvador, or soon to be Libya, as he said, or perhaps Alcatraz, who are sitting there knowing they did nothing wrong, knowing that the only reason they are in the situation they're in, along with their families, is because of an overzealous administration who is fucking bungling things at every turn. Their incompetence is leading to so many lives being destroyed. And this is not just going to be a short-term thing. The repercussions of what is happening right now, even if it was all reversed magically tomorrow, would still be so devastating. And we haven't even properly, assessed what happened during the pandemic and how many lives have been disrupted and changed in so many ways from the pandemic. We haven't even begun to understand all of those repercussions. And now we're rolling head into another just shitstorm of incompetence and decimating so many things that make this country what it is, that even if it had problems, and again, we'll all be the first to say it wasn't perfect. It's never been perfect. We're working to make it a more perfect union. Every day we work towards that. And we've taken such a major step backwards on so many levels. I don't see how we recover. And that's what's starting to kill me more than anything. Yes, every day I've gotten used to somewhat hearing the bullshit news and hearing more about this nightmare hellscape we're in. But what really is starting to get to me is what does the future even look like? Like, what is that future? Magically, when 2028 happens and, God help us, there's an answer to this, whatever party it is, whoever it is, there's an answer to something better. Even if that person comes in with the greatest people in the world, how do you fix this? How do you fix any of this? How do you fix the distrust that all these other countries have in us now? How do you fix the distrust and just the factions that have been built amongst our own citizenry? And that's the part that scares me the most. And so I'm going to take a little break here just so we can refresh and I can get some water. And then I'm going to close this entire episode with this this program that I watch, which again, I recommend and I'll talk about that. But holy shit, what it did in terms of just opening my eyes, it was horrifying. And it's really what truly kind of put me over the top. And then I do want to say one thing about the Pope. I feel obliged to do so. So we're going to take a little break and then come on back and I'll close out with a couple more things here.
How do you maintain a sense of hope and levity when times... How do you keep laughing through all that?
Right. How old are you?
I'm 19.
19 years old and the world's already beat the shit out of you. Isn't that? It's always the young dudes that are like, I have a quick question. I'm 19 years old. When hope is gone, when the darkness slowly creeps down. I'm 61, so I'm already in injury time. So I'm good. I'm actually weirdly always optimistic. We go, I think maybe that is the horizon of history. I came up at a time in the 60s where we had all these great leaders and we killed all of them, every single one. And then we went to Vietnam and law, and then Watergate. Like, shit was just unraveling. So I do think it gives you a sense of, oh, it's always a mess. Like, and what that makes you realize is, oh, so it's just that's the game. We buckle down, you gotta lunch pail it, and you carry it through. Like, you're 19, like, you'll someday when you're 61 and people be saying, like, how do you maintain optimism? Be like, you have no fucking idea what it was like when I was a kid. Like, you will be that.
I'm scrolling the YouTubes, as I'm wont to do when I can't find anything really of any substance to watch, if there's no Cubs games or anything baseball related on. And I watch, podcasts or what have you. And I stumbled upon this show called Surrounded. Now, the first episode I saw was this doctor taking on 20 anti-vaxxers. And I saw the format. It's kind of a cool concept and format in that you have the one expert in this first episode. Like I just said, it was a doctor, 20 anti-vaxxers. The doctor creates like 5 different kind of issues or statements that he's going to debate. And then there's rounds. And basically at the start of each round, or at when there's a pause in the action, if you will, whoever's the first one to kind of touch this chair sits down, has a debate. Everyone's watching. And once the crowd kind of starts to either not like what is being said by their chosen representative or the conversation, what's happening, they start putting up these red flags. And once that reaches 11 members, that's the majority. And that person needs to stop immediately. They need to leave their chair, and it allows another person to join in. What I liked about it, and again, I only saw this from the first episode before I saw the one I'm about to talk about. I liked that it seemed very structured. It wasn't people talking over each other, or at least not a lot of people doing that. And I like good, healthy debates. I think good, healthy debates are exactly what we need. And I'm always encouraging this to happen on every level, everywhere possible. And so it was great to see that on this, YouTube channel, there was someone, and I want to give them their props. It was called Straight Arrow News. The program was, I think, produced or at least presented by Jubilee Media. But Straight Arrow News has commercials throughout the program indicating that they're a news team that just wants to kind of present the facts, present the story, give all sides and not lean one way or the other. And again, I think all media needs to be doing this, period. And so I like how they represent that and how they present it. They have facts that they put up, and they don't apologize for it. They just say like, hey, every time there's something brought up and we can either prove it, support it, or show otherwise with facts, we will do so. And so there's fact checkers, which again is fantastic. I think there needs to be fact checkers on everything, especially again after watching this show. So I watched a little bit of that version there, the doctor versus the anti-vaxxers. And then I saw another one. Sam Sater, who is an actor, political commentator, and the host of Majority Report, took on 20 MAGA supporters. These were people that voted for Trump, support Trump, identify in some instances as white Christian nationalists. And I didn't know what to expect. I had kind of a sense because of TikTok and the various things that hit my algorithm with the panels and discussions. I knew how they operate. So I got that down. I've seen that enough. They basically come in right away with an attitude, always, across the board. There's always a sense of like, I'm about to show you, regardless of who you are. I'm about to show you. I'm about to be right. I'm about to school you. There's definitely a combative attitude that they take on immediately. And that never goes away. And this program cemented that for me. The other thing they like to do is they like to just kind of put things back on you. For example, when it comes to the talk about trans, non-binary, intersex issues, at least in TikTok world, what I constantly see across the board is the people saying, all right, first of all, what's your definition of a woman? I just want to start there. What's your definition of a woman? And they're just very obnoxious. And try to seem, I don't want to be rude here, but they try to seem more together and armed better by using bigger words that they clearly do not know what the meaning is. It's just it's very narrative. It's you can tell like basically it's propaganda that's being disseminated and they have talking points and they're just going to hold on to these talking points. And then it's almost like if they get caught or backed up into a corner, their response is to then, well, where are you citing that from? What's your data for that? What's your source for that? Like it's now to poke holes when they feel backed into a corner. It's just, there's no strategy other than be an asshole, basically be very loud and rude and combative and say a lot of nonsense, because that's all I get from this. And this show cemented that for me. So the first clip I'm going to play, because yes, I want to play some clips, and I'll also link the actual program in the program notes of this episode here, but I could not just illustrate or say how this impacted me and have it be effective enough. I had to play some clips because, and maybe you've heard this kind of talk before. I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty well traveled and and, taken for the most part a lot, like, whether it be on social media or news or whatever the case may be. Now, I don't sit there and watch Fox News ever. And I don't read news articles from sources that will be in that world, i.e., I guess, Breitbart or whatever. I don't read any of that. But I watch mainstream media. I watch TikTok and clips. And so I see the dribble that's coming out on the other side. Believe me, I see it. I just never saw it in this format. And it was just very eye-opening for me. So the first clip I'm going to play is a guy named Michael. And Sam's topic or issue in this instance is talking about DEI. And Sam really presented it in a great way. He really made sure to talk about how it's actually DEI-A, and the A is accessibility, and how it's not just about race and not just about, hiring practices. It's about advertising for the job and making sure that you're doing that everywhere and that it's very fair and equal and everyone has opportunity. And that's what these initiatives were really about and really were devised, especially at the government level, like the actual government agencies. And this gentleman, Michael, he was the first person to start saying some things where I thought Sam was just going to be like, his head was going to explode and he was just going to have to leave. But he was a trooper. He stayed in it for a long time and obviously had the facts and reality on his side. But there were several times where I thought, oh my God, he's going to implode. And I read an article afterwards. It was in, I think, Vulture, about how basically he said, yeah, I almost didn't make it. Yeah. So I'm going to play this first clip. This is Michael, and the topic is about DEI initiatives and why it's bad, supposedly. They're taking the side that it's bad.
When it comes to DEI, essentially, if a person was not racist, he would hire someone regardless, right? So why would we need a policy to protect a person if we've moved past racism? So would you consider yourself racist?
Wait, are you suggesting we've moved past racism?
Would you consider yourself racist?
I consider myself, and sometimes I think we all practice like some form of, white supremacy. I think actually like we all do to some degree.
Well, I'm glad that you're saying that. So I guess going to the LGBT topic, it seems like it's very prevalent for you as an issue.
It seems like a big issue. I mean, the Republican Party spent literally hundreds of millions of dollars demonizing trans people.
Well, the reason why they've done something like that, and I think you're misconstruing the narrative, they haven't demonized them. They simply want protections back for their own children, because children are being stripped away from their parents.
Who's their own children? Wait, children are being stripped away from their parents?
Yes, due to AB 954, they've now included gender identity as a premise to remove and strip parental rights for children who maybe they are rejecting their gender ideology.
So, but you'd be okay with parents who agree with their children's doctors to provide gender-affirming care?
I do not agree with that. Do you? Now, in terms of a DEI initiative, the reason why there's military bans on trans women and trans men is because they do not have the ability to cooperate at a mental capacity when they're constantly undergoing hormone treatment, as well as depression pills, as well as different mood stabilizer pills. And so when you go out to combat, do you really think you're going to bring an ice cooler pack with your whether that be hormone estrogen or whatever it may be, while you're about to shoot someone of the opposing war? And that is the emphasis
People
here.
get hired as a merit, but if the DEI, I'm talking about Trump's rescission of these orders on these agencies.
If you received a tax cut as an employer, wouldn't you hire a person of color?
Dude,
if you could pay them less?
Listen, we're talking about government agencies that do not get tax cuts. Government agencies.
They don't.
No.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do.
I'm talking about
Every
parts
private and public sector gets tax cuts when you hire a person of color.
Government agencies don't pay taxes. Government agencies operate on, are funded by the government.
That is not true. That is not true.
All right, so that was interesting, huh? That was Michael. And the thing I think that, again, at least for me, that is so like, just really took me aback was they're so confident with such wrong information, like with Michael saying government agencies pay taxes. And it's like, no matter what side of the fence you're on in terms of politics, no, government agencies don't pay taxes. Like, that's just inherently known, and it's a fact. Like, it's just a fact. And to hear him so passionately and confidently just really took me back. But that was nothing compared to this next clip and this next person, Sarah, who so confidently, boldly, unapologetically says what she says in this clip. So I'm going to let you hear that, and then I'll share how I felt on the other side. So here is Sarah talking about, this time the topic was about how Trump is basically just leading a movement of white Christian nationalists, that inherently that's what's at the core of everything, and it's going to, if successful, be the downfall of America, basically. In not so many words. That's kind of like what his approach was. So here is Sarah.
So I actually think that this liberal world order needs to be thrown away completely, and I think Christian nationalism would be a good alternative. What we're seeing right now is
and
just
congratulations.
Yeah, and thank you. And yeah, I think what we're seeing right now is a culture of death. This is the most suicidal generation ever. We have millions of children dying by abortion. People aren't even reproducing. We don't even have like a...
Should we mandate people reproduce?
No, I don't think we need to mandate. We can just stop them from killing their kids.
You want to outlaw abortion?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, we have a fundamental disagreement on this, and my claim was that if you voted for Trump, it would be to your benefit if you want to outlaw abortion.
I think it would benefit everyone.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that women should have the right to choose.
I think that it would benefit everyone to bring back the family unit, to stop having women just thrown into the workforce.
Maybe we shouldn't allow women to choose to divorce unless their husbands say it's okay.
I mean, I don't really believe in divorce in general, so, like, sure. And same with xenophobic what's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
Xenophobic nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is the dominant culture?
Based on European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian,
it's rooted in European identity.
White. So your argument is that
has been the dominant culture.
Just to be clear,
and we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been.
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too.
Now I'm 51 years of age. I have known and know that these people exist, and that they've been associated with such organizations as the KKK. And at least in my life and my experience, we kind of just knew where most of these folks hung out or where they were gathered, and we just knew kind of to avoid those places or what have you. in other words, we thought that the people that had this ideology were the minority. And perhaps they still are. I don't know. But what I didn't think was that they were young females or young kids, or in the case of Michael, I don't want to make an assumption, but I think he said he was gay. You know, it was weird to see different ethnicities, men, women, females, etc., be represented in this group of supporters and hear them saying such things. To hear this young female say, like, you know, first stupidly, I don't believe in divorce, whatever the fuck that means, but like, just again, that this idea that everything that makes America and what has made us it work for this long, i.e. being a melting pot and our diversity and our cultural influences and the fact that, you know, we're not just a theocracy. We don't just have one religion, that we have a public square where many different ideas and many different backgrounds can come together. To hear this girl say that is basically what has led to the downfall of this country and that needs to go away, it just didn't hit right. And it really stuck with me. I was horrified. And that's when I really thought about the future. Like, this young lady could get pregnant or married and have a family. And so again, if we are successful in getting rid of the MAGA party in the next election, this ideology is not just going to magically go away. It's going to be rooted, and these people are going to just keep at this. They're just going to intensify, and their anger is going to lead to other things. And watching this show really made me see that and think about that in a whole new way. These people are for real. Like, this isn't just a game, and this isn't just like, you know, fandom, although I think it started as that. It is now them believing with every fiber of their being this bullshit that they're saying, and not even that it's ideology anymore, that they just accept these things as facts. And this was again proven to be true by Michael, our friend, when again the topic was still on the idea of Christianity and family values, whatever the case may be. And he used this opportunity to still get one more little kind of jab into the specifically the trans, intersex, non-binary community with this ridiculousness. And so here, once again, literally right after Sarah, Michael comes up. So I was already horrified by Sarah, and then Michael comes in for round 2, and that's when I just wanted to scream from the mountaintops. So here's Michael.
Okay, so these are all people's opinions, right? The same way you have your opinions about Christians is the same way these people are allowed.
No, I don't have a problem with Christians.
Well, you do not believe that theology should be at its
We should not have a theocracy.
Correct. And so what I'm saying is, I think that Christianity, I'm a Catholic, I think that Christianity is, fundamentally very important to instill family values in myself as well as every person who wants to have children. Now, let's talk about...
I'm okay with that, too.
Let's talk about Order 14,166. That is an executive order that Donald Trump just imposed on identifying what is male and female. So I personally believe, as well as many transsexuals, friends of mine, believe that a woman is a biological female, as well as a man being a biological male. You are assigned what you are at birth. You are not assigned your gender later on. What you choose to express is something that is similar to wearing a garment, similar to what you decide to put on your face. And I don't think there should be laws or legislations dictating people or imposing laws to manipulate children, for example, to castrate their bodies at such a young age. 50% of children.
Do you know how many children are treated over the past 5 years? Let's say, I think it was from 2018 to 22, there was a study that just came out from Harvard. Do you know how many children received gender-affirming care, but broken down into puberty blockers and then hormones?
Give me the numbers.
You tell me. I'm curious.
Well, I'm curious because you're bringing it up.
No, I have the numbers.
Okay, tell me.
I do, but I'm curious if you know.
Tell me what the numbers
are. I promise to tell you after you tell me what you think it is.
I'm not gonna play that game.
Because I have a feeling
we're not playing this game.
No, I am playing this game because I think you think it's much higher. When you tell me that kids are being castrated, I know you don't really know what these numbers are. And I do know these numbers.
Okay, well, I can tell you this much.
What?
It was reported that scientifically every single child who has received gender-affirming care, about roughly 50% of them regret it. And 50% of them are suicidal because of it. They're actually more depressed because of it.
How many of those kids? How many?
A psychologist,
by the way. How many over the course of 5 years?
Well, tell me.
You tell me.
Tell me.
Just give me
I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to put me in this chokehold of like,
no, I'm not trying to put you in a chokehold. No, this is definitely a gotcha moment because I'm suggesting to you that you think this problem is much bigger than it is.
It is a huge problem.
Okay.
Medi-Cal covers inmate trans women.
I understand that, yes. And I know one person has had that surgery.
I don't understand how my taxes should go for an inmate prisoner who wants to transition.
Well,
need I say more? So, as you can see, a lot of bullshit within that program. But again, I found it to be very insightful. And I do recommend watching it, especially if you kind of want to know how the opposition is thinking. It was very helpful to me to just give more context to what is really happening there. It was eye-opening. And so I watched this kind of at the beginning of this week. And again, to illustrate, bad perm, gender dysphoria, drill through the hand, watching NEA, National Endowment of the Arts, get decimated, and watching and knowing all these artists are going to be hurting so badly because of this. Then the Les Mis shit and the kind of remnants resuscitating of McCarthyism and the blacklist. Then to watching this show, our military members and those identifying as trans, intersex, non-binary, being out of a job. All of this just steamrolling into then today, the news of the Pope. Now I'm still processing all of this because for whatever reason, it's made me feel a kind of way. And I'll just say my reaction immediately was just like, well, if we're trying to not be a theocracy or a one religion state, why is MSNBC having nonstop coverage of the Pope when, at least in America, the majority of people here don't identify as Catholic? I understand the Pope is a historical figure and it's a historical position. I get that. I just can't help but think, as someone who was raised Catholic, that this, I don't know how this ends. I think there's a reason why most people thought there was never, ever going to be a pope from America. All the reasons for why they thought that kind of makes sense to me. Now, I don't agree with the whole people thought Kennedy was going to have a direct line to the Vatican because of the Pope and Catholicism. No. But in today's day and age, especially when you talk about a country like America, where we have many different faiths and many different religions, and that's one of our selling points, is that we're not a theocracy and we're open to all of this, all this stuff that we were just talking about. And then MSNBC just has wall-to-wall coverage of the Pope, and then seems to like really fucking lose it when they find out that the Pope's from America. then it's just nonstop. I've never seen so many priests and archbishops and religious leaders talking on the news as I did today. And I just feel like, wow, like that's not necessarily where mainstream media should be going. Is it an important story? Yes, absolutely. And I'm still trying to figure out what this all means. And I think many of us are. It's a big deal, but I just can't help but feel, and I just wanted to put it out there publicly, say that I feel some kind of way about it. And I wish it was good feelings, but it's not. And one of my concerns is that we know how Americans seemingly have been getting in terms of their reverence for certain leaders. You know, they're showing up at Trump rallies with the red hats and the t-shirts and the flags and all that. And the first time Pope Leo is in the United States, if you don't think there's going to be swag for days and t-shirts I just don't think that that's what anyone had envisioned when they envisioned the Pope or what previous popes have been. There's always been obviously reverence and crowds and fans, I dare say, but they've been more so about what the Pope represents and the spiritual aspects of that. And leave it to America. America is always going to America. We're going to turn this into a franchise. We're going to turn this into a money-making opportunity. It's already started. I love Obvious Shirts in Chicago. They're a great t-shirt company. They have amazing shirts. I've bought many of them. When I got an email from them this afternoon talking about the Pope, because he's from Chicago and happens to supposedly somehow be a Cubs fan, and they were jumping on that, I was just like, oi, good God. Just a few days ago, Catholics were chastising Trump for doing the AI image of himself as the Pope and putting that out there, and everyone was offended. What do they think is now going to happen because the Pope is an American? And what does this mean? What does this do? I think if anything, it could blow up in everyone's face, because I want to think, and again, I don't know, but I want to think the other countries with the other cardinals endorsed an American cardinal for this moment as Pope, because they maybe thought that as America is going the way we are right now with our leaders, that perhaps an American Pope could, I don't know, maybe stand up to them or somehow help in this matter. And maybe it can. But I think what's going to happen is other countries where their populations of Catholics are way higher than ours and where the church is actually growing are going to feel left out, disenfranchised, and perhaps feel that the lines between their religion and spirituality and the commercialization of the Pope or possibly the callous nature in which the Pope will now be discussed and talked about will not align with what their principles are. And I feel bad for them. It's no secret. I left the church long ago because of the things that I was hearing and what was being said to me, and just we had many differing views on many different topics, and I was somehow aware enough to recognize that, at least based on a historical perspective, religion was just a device. It was a tool used to control the people, and especially in Catholicism, I saw at a very young age that it really seemed to be very imbalanced and very patriarchal. And I raised those concerns and was not received very well. And that's a story for another time. So I don't know what to make of all this. I just wanted to say for the public record that I'm feeling a certain kind of way about this. I'm not feeling a good way. I'm kind of scared. I don't know what this means. I just feel like it's been a weird day. It's been a really weird day. And it was topped off. Again, this is just like, oh, could this day get any worse? And then bing. It was topped off by receiving a text from a family member about some news that I don't even know how to begin to start processing. But it was like I was sitting there making pizza for my wife, and I was trying to just process the day, the Pope shit, all this stuff, and then that text message. And I will say this, and this is how my day kind of ended, which was much better. My wife also received that text, immediately came into the kitchen, held me from behind, and just made sure I was okay. And that's how you know you have the right person, your person, the person that just in reading something or getting something knows instantly that you need reassurance, that you need support, that you need some love. And that's why my wife is the greatest. That's just one of the reasons. There are many reasons. So yeah, it's been a hellacious week. I'm looking forward to hopefully this week ending on an up note somehow and for the better, and we can start anew. But I just felt like I needed to share that I'm feeling defeated. I'm feeling exhausted, disoriented, like I said. I feel defeated. I'm starting to feel a bit, not hopeless, but powerless. Definitely powerless. That, these things that we were supposed to take stock in knowing we're not going to break, i.e. our judicial system, that is no longer the case, because I don't understand how a Supreme Court could especially allow those members of our armed forces to be experiencing what they're experiencing now. I just don't see how a Supreme Court could even begin to think that's okay. And granted, they've showed long before this that overturning Roe v. Wade was definitely a step in this direction of being like, hey, yeah, we're basically going to make the world suck for several of you. But it just keeps happening. And so I don't have the faith now in our judicial systems. And even if I do have the faith, while these things are being, drawn out in court, there are still people who are being impacted by this on a daily basis. There are American citizens sitting in a jail right now that the mainstream media is very direct in saying these places are known as like, once you go in, you never come out kind of places. And they're saying that proudly and broadly and loudly, but then they're not having a call to action. They're not letting us know what we can do about this, because I'm sorry, as someone who luckily, fortunately, does not know anyone necessarily that's being caught in any of this, as a human being, I can empathize with the fact that someone just being dragged from their home, put on an airplane, not being given any information, not being allowed to make a phone call, nothing, and then arriving at a prison in another country that they never have been a part of and never lived in and have no ties to. And they find out that that prison is basically known as a place where no one leaves. And day after day, they're living in this nightmare, in this hellscape. And they're supposed to somehow feel some kind of way or some kind of hope because the Supreme Court said, hey, that's not right, get him back, and nothing's happened? Like, I look at that as someone who's also being targeted by my government and thinking, oh, does he want to open Alcatraz because that's where he's going to put me and members of my community? And then he wants to send a different disenfranchised group to Libya? Like, y'all, this is starting to get really serious. And we're just a couple months in. And already the damage that's been done is undescribable. From medicine and medical research to the EPA and standards. Look at all the food illnesses. Look at all the food that's being recalled. Look at all the measles outbreak. Like, this is going to get a whole lot worse before it even gets remotely better. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm finding it hard to be optimistic. I'm finding it hard to find motivation and energy. And I will, obviously. I've done it before. But this week really hit me hard. And I needed to talk about it. And so I thank you for that. Truly. To the few people that I'm sure are listening to this, thank you. Because I just needed to share, and I need to be able to be okay with those moments where I don't feel in control and where I don't feel like I have the answers or that I'm in the right frame of mind. I need to be okay with that. And I need to share that, because I do know, based on feedback, that there are those of you that listen to this and draw inspiration from how I'm meeting these challenges. And that's the best I could hope for. And that's honestly why I want to share my story. I know that we're all dealing with our own shit. And sometimes we just need to hear how someone else is managing or see how they're doing it. And this week, I failed. I failed on many levels. I've woken up angry and frustrated and like a piece of me has just been taken. And I want so badly for this all to just somehow be a bad dream that we all magically wake up from. And when we do, the Cubs win the World Series.
I have no fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh.
Well, that's it.
I have no fucks left.
I am way over on time
so
and putting you all through this. So thank you very much, truly. I use this podcast and this platform as kind of a therapeutic device for myself, and maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should actually pony up and get a therapist, but that doesn't work, at least not for me. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your comments and your feedback. If anything that I said in this show sparked something in you, let me know. Let me know you're out there. Let me know what things are resonating with you. Let me know what you're doing to find hope and find the ability to meet this all day after day after day. Let's share that, because I think we're going to need that more than anything else that we're imagining, because we're going to have to pick up the pieces. And I'm already starting to see the work that's ahead, and it's a lot. So let's keep sharing. And until then, make sure that you look out for each other. Look out for yourself. And always, I know it's tough sometimes, always lead with love.
Not sorry, don't cry.
No Fucks Left is a presentation of Transplendent Media. The host and creator is Landyn Shaw. Logo and graphic design by WALLY Spence. Our intern and project manager is Ryan BALMER. If you'd like to interact or connect with the show, be sure to visit our website at nofucksleftpod.com. That's nofucksleftpod.com. As always, you can always click on any of the links in the program notes to find out more information about the show, Landyn, and our guests. Thanks.